Okay.
Hello and welcome to another episode of EZConvos. Today we're going to be talking about should we allow terrorists back into our countries? So obviously by terrorist I mean someone that's committed an act of terror either against our nation, our country or our culture. Going to be making reference to a particularly recent case, at least for people in Britain. I think most people, well, a few people here are from Britain, so they'll be aware of it. And I'm referring, of course, to the case of Shamima Begum. She was born in London, in Bethnal Green, only about half an hour away from myself. So for all intents and purposes, she grew up, as a British citizen, and being born here, she is entitled to that British citizenship. She also has Bangladeshi citizenship. So it's important. I think it's important to make that clear as we go into this discussion. She has dual citizenship. Okay. Essentially, what happened is in 2015, when she was 15 years old, she went away with two friends in order to join ISIS. And as everyone knows, ISIS is a terrorist organization. They've committed acts of incredible violence, and they're opposed to everything essentially Western. So she went away, and recently, from I think a year ago, or maybe just about 2 years ago, she made an appeal to come back to Britain. Her husband had died, or rather, he was killed. So she was on her own with a newborn child. So she wanted to come back, and this has created a lot of kind of uproar in Britain and arguments as to whether she should be allowed to come back to fight for her citizenship, whether she should not be allowed. Maybe her kid's innocent, so maybe the child should be permitted entry back to Britain. But it's caused a lot of kind of outcry and a lot of heated discussion, and we're going to be talking about that today, whether or not she should be allowed to come back. Is her act so abhorrent? Is it so beyond the pale that she should never be given a chance to come back? Or do we have a duty as a society, as a civilized society, to help her if we can, or to help her see the error of her ways? So without further ado, I'm going to give it to Bethnia, and you've got like a minute or two just to kind of give your opening thoughts on the matter.
It's a really difficult one because I feel like do we have an obligation to like protect her if she was one of us? I feel like maybe she should come back and fight for her citizenship. It's got to that point, so we can actually hear her out. And at the very least, she should come back and face her karma in a way. So yeah, that's my opinion just now.
She should be allowed to come back, but subjected to the rule of our country, which is basically the law of Britain, basically.
Yes, definitely.
Fair enough. Marky, I know you're not British, you're Finnish. So perhaps if you're not too familiar with the case we're talking about, terrorists as a whole, do you feel that terrorists who commit these acts should ever be allowed access back to their, arguably their home in many ways? They were born there, they grew up there. Should they be allowed to come back and face whatever punishment is deemed necessary?
Well, I'm a little bit familiar with the case, and Finland has its own same kind of situation. I think there was 2 or 3 even women who wants to get back after ISIL was mostly destroyed. My thoughts about it would be that yes and no. Should they be tried as with our laws or the Western laws? Yes, but they have broken so many international human rights law and I mean, they could be linked even to drug trafficking. So I don't know how it should be trialed, but should they be let in? I'm not sure about that, but because there's too many things that could affect, and it could even be a cause to even remove their citizenships.
Fair enough. What about you, Naharis? What do you think of it?
I honestly agree with what Marky said. We had a few cases in Italy here too. My most big concern is that those people, those girls, even if they were so young, and I can agree with the fact that they were groomed or brainwashed, they did leave it with that. Even I know that maybe at some point, they were they had no choices, but still they were aware about all the crimes that the ISIS were committing. So I do believe that they should face the law in their country. But yeah, it's very difficult to say.
And what about you? I know you're from Britain yourself. Do you?
Yeah, I'm from Scotland, yeah.
Nice. Do you see any sort of grounds where you could make a case that she can come back, or do you think no, she's gone against our values? That's it.
100% no. I am not for this at all. I am not in favor of her coming back to this country because it is quite sad. But the truth is, though, that we have brought back so many ISIS terrorists. Where are they now? 400 of them. Could they be indoctrinating other kids to join ISIS? Yeah, I don't think any terrorists should be allowed back in their country because we just don't need them. I've seen, because of coronavirus, I've been like volunteering in the local area, and I've seen so many vulnerable people that need help from the government, but the government are wasting taxpayers' money trying to bring people like her back. She wouldn't do the same for us. And the idea that she was brainwashed, I don't agree with that. She sought out ISIS. Everybody knew what they're capable of. They are the most barbaric terrorist organization in the world. They use women. The women they use for snipers at the end of the battle, and they also use children as suicide bombers. And also, you have to think about a couple of, I think it was last year actually, I might be wrong, but the London Bridge attack happened. One of you from London, is that correct?
Yeah, we are here.
Yeah, you're from London, so you probably were aware of it, and that you might also be aware that the person who committed this was also an ISIS fighter that we brought back, let out halfway through his sentence, and paid money obviously for his rehabilitation. And I just don't think they deserve a second chance. They need to be made an example of, because then if people see this, young people like us realize the actions of their consequences. If they do this, they will lose their home. And I'm not for her coming back. I think it's a complete disgrace on the government.
That's actually a very interesting point, and I want to. We'll be doing a bit more for and against during the discussion stage, but I just wanted to catch you on that point you made about the government. What were the government doing? What would you say to an argument that says, well, similarly in the case of Shamima, she went with three friends, two friends, 15-year-olds traveling to Turkey on their own, a well-known gateway to Syria. So it was known that this was used as a route to get there. What would you say to an argument saying, well, maybe the blame should be on the intelligence services, not necessarily the people who are using it?
Well, I would say it's always got to be someone else's problem, hasn't it? It's always got to be. It's always great to throw it back on the state, isn't it? It's always the police. It's always the government. Why can't we just give the harsh message. We need someone to tell it straight, literally, because what taxpayers are sick of having to pay for these terrorists. They are terrorists, and the NHS needs this money right now. There's lots of vulnerable people that need help but can't get it because we're wasting money on ISIS terrorists, and they would, if they had it their way, they would take away everything we hold dear about our country and they'd show no mercy. So I say, keep them out there, make an example of them, and we don't need them back in our country because the British government, we are pushovers. At the end of the day, we bring them back here. I can just read them like a book. We'll pay for a new house for her and give it a couple of years. She'll be on like I'm a Celebrity, get me out of here or something like.
Some interesting points from Glenn. Yeah, definitely. Okay.
Thank you.
Nova, do you find yourself in agreement with what Glenn said about keep them out, let it serve as a reminder? If you go against us, you're never coming back. Do you have the same sort of viewpoint?
This is a complex question, and if we go to her, Peckham, this girl, the information about her. I'm thinking about the backgrounds. We are fed with information of why she went down and why and everything like this. I am like suspicious every time when it comes to a terrorist group as ISIS. I am kind of, I don't know. I don't believe in anything until I see it. The information about her. Is she a tool in their agenda? Why? How come she's a woman? She's female. In this Islamic religion, females, how high standard does she have? Are they using her as a tool in their agenda? Are they testing how far they can go with our Western society, with coming back and we are just taking them in? Welcome, welcome. You have killed people in that country and being sadist, crazy, unhuman, humanitarian thingies. But you can come to us again and we're going to forgive you because we are so nice. I agree with Glenn a little. I would not say come back. If you make a decision, when are we going to be harsh? When you make a decision, I'm going to go to that country and kill people. When you do that, you cannot come back. If they know that before they go, they might think another time. Do you know what I get?
What would you say though? Obviously, I'm not condoning the act itself. None of us are. She did align with ISIS. We aren't too sure what she's actually done. I don't think there's any actually conclusive proof as to what she's done. But if you were to go with Sajid Javid's view, he said essentially it doesn't matter what role she took on. They all supported a terrorist organization. It was all about hate towards Western society and values. It's a death cult. So it doesn't matter if she was there cleaning clothes or doing not I don't think she would be doing that in the desert, but it doesn't matter what she was doing, she had a role to play, and she essentially, by being there, her presence affirmed her support for it. Pat, going to you, what is your view on this? So you're like me, you're a British person. Do you feel any kind of anger or any emotion? Do you feel that people are getting emotionally clouded now in their judgment of this? What do you think?
I would probably go on the again, like Nova said, you need to see it from all sides, because if we're just going from the typical outlook of what we've been told, what we know, common sense view, which would pretty much prevail, goes on basically what Glenn, not Neil, what Glenn said. And if I guess for me, I'm more concerned also of accountability as well. When are we able to actually legitimately say this person is accountable for their actions? Because we have an agenda to always absolve people of their responsibility, and as Glenn rightly said, to start dissolving that responsibility to outside forces, whether it be the police, whether it be the intelligence services. But when do we actually hold the people themselves accountable? When do we actually focus that gaze towards the communities, towards the parents, towards the family structure? Because these are the people that are living with radicals like that day in, day out. But again, there seems to be a constant desire, for whatever reason, to not focus on that and to focus on outside, the incompetences of other.
Kind of like what Glenn was saying about blaming other people all the time.
Yeah, exactly. But then also, from the moral point of view, of course, it's morally wrong. We shouldn't let people that are joining radical extremist, what do you call that?
Organisations.
Or whatever,
Death
organizations
cults.
who have, who basically have a death wish for what we stand for, our values, and they want to fight that. But at the same time, we can't go purely on the whims of emotion as well, because if we do that on mob rule, every time someone gets infuriated by X action or whatever, as long as you have enough people exuding emotion and hatred towards it, then that will prevail. So I guess from the legislation point of view, people will say she should come in and be trialed for her actions. But saying that, do we not have the technology nowadays at our disposal to do this remotely, to give her a trial via online, as opposed to bring her into the country? Because I think there have been accounts of even some of the heads of state and the head of Metropolitan Police basically saying once she's in, she won't be going out anyway. So you're left thinking the whole point of the appeal is regarding her citizenship. Should she get it back or should she not? But once she's in the country, it kind of defeats the purpose because she's already here. I highly doubt, due to humanitarian reasons and legislation, we're going to be kicking her out anytime soon. So that's my take.
It's interesting because, like you said, there needs to be a point where people need to be responsible for their actions, right? And she was a teenager, fair enough. Everyone here has made mistakes, I'm sure. And you grow through it, and you look back at it, and you, in a retrospective mindset, and you're like, Jesus, did I actually do that? Did I actually think that? Wow. And and sometimes you cringe or whatever, but it's all about that kind of personal growth, right? I suppose what I wanted to say, we've been touching on the kind of, you guys, your immediate responses, how you feel about this happening, in your countries. What I wanted to talk about is, I wanted to posit to you guys, even though emotionally people are angry and you feel like this shouldn't be allowed, in the British law, she is actually allowed to come and do that. So she's allowed to come and, essentially fight for her right to return to the UK. She's allowed to come back here to fight for her citizenship. It's enshrined in our law. So what would you say to that? I'm going to open it up to Glenn first of all, but after Glenn, anyone who feels like getting involved, feel free to chime in, and then I'll find another kind of topic to talk about. But Glenn, what do you feel about that? Like the whole idea that, emotions aside, legally she is
Legally,
allowed to be doing this. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry I was laughing throughout because as a teenager I used to run a lot, and I could put that down to a teenage phase. But joining ISIS is something that is just unforgivable, literally, because I knew at 15, I knew the difference between right and wrong, so that's my one thing. But yeah, legally, yes. She does have that right, but I think we should change the law. There should be a change in law because honestly, I completely agree with Case about the fact that if she comes back over here to court, she'll manage to just slip away because they have nothing to charge her on. Because in her exact words, she's just been a housewife, a housewife that walked past heads full of bins, bins in the heads and all that. But will they find a crime to punish her for? I very much doubt it. And again, you're right. When she gets over here, humanitarians will step in. Yeah, of course they would, and say, "Oh no, we can't sling her back to Syria," you know. But I still stand by what I said. I just really. I'm trying to protect British people. We need to put British people first. She obviously hated our country, so hence why she joined such a extreme group that literally wants to eradicate our way of living. You know, and I just fail to see what she can actually bring to the UK. Like, the only thing she could bring is the intelligence of ISIS fighter, the position of ISIS fighters. That's the only value she has to the UK. But she'd be an expensive value, that's for sure. You know, but I'm really not for her coming back, because I've seen so many people suffering throughout this virus, and that money that's being wasted on her, in my mind. I just say to folk, if you want these ISIS fighters back, let them live next door to you. But I don't want to have someone who's a terrorist living next door to me. Thank you very much. And I don't want to, as a British taxpayer, have to pay for her to come over. And yeah, and the technology these days is so great. Why can't she just have a trial via Skype from Syria?
It's an
why
interesting
not?
point. It's an interesting
Yeah.
point. It's true. I think that
Yeah.
might develop. But I think as of now, that isn't applicable, unless I'm
Mhm.
wrong. So legally she can come back. And
Legally, yes. Yeah.
So you'd be in agreement with that the kind of legal proceeding of it.
Yeah, it doesn't make it.
Obviously, of course not. Yeah, it doesn't make it right.
Morals, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
But legally, yes. But I would approach it that we could maybe challenge the law to get it changed. For even if it's not for her, but for future terrorists. But I think her coming back here just ultimately sends out the wrong message to young people, because she stands for a lot of these people from well, I'm not sure, is she Muslim?
She is, yeah.
A lot of these young girls and boys as well from Muslim communities, I do feel in London, feel like outcasts. They feel like they don't belong in British society. We need to implement more acceptance and tolerance in the British society towards Muslims, you know, because then they might not feel like they have to join an extremist group. But at the end of the day, though, her coming back just sends the wrong message that you can just go over and literally join the most brutal group. But then, yeah, once it's all over, you know, and the ISIS dream has come to an end, you know, yeah, we'll bring you back with open arms, sling money at you. You know, it's totally wrong. It's flawed.
That's a very interesting thing you touched on, the idea of these people feeling alienated. I wanted to actually bring that onto to the discussion. Marky, for example, do you feel? Sorry to cut you off. Just it's important.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Mark, do you feel that part of the problem, part of the reason these kids essentially are going out there is because they feel disillusioned? Is it because of us? Is it because of how we're treating these people from different backgrounds? Are we not doing enough? Are we to blame?
Short answer, no. Long answer is a bit complicated. There's a look. Wherever you go, especially Europe, UK, we are dicks to each other, and now we are demanded that we treat Muslims differently. We are more tolerant. I mean, we are being dicks to each other, regardless of faith, creed, or whatever. And you know, it's fake. Young people always try to find some meaning or purpose, and it's not a good excuse that because they feel they have some kind of not maybe right, but some kind of no accountability of doing really shitty things. It's not how it works. And the second thing is, there are, I don't know if she is, but it's definitely terrorist organizations, be they Muslim or Christian, they will use different tactics and exploit the people's compassion. And if UK or world in generally doesn't make an example that you can't exploit our compassion. We need to show compassion, sure, because it's moral thing. It's one of the core values that you can come from whenever you come from. You can have made a mistakes, but you can have a new life, a new chance. That's what's one core principles of Western civilization.
But what about this girl?
But
She's
you
made a
you can
mistake. She's made a
yeah, but
mistake. She can't come back.
she was. I mean, 15-year-olds, they're not so stupid. I don't know why people kept calling 15-year-olds or as children. They're not children. They're not so stupid. I mean, sure, there might have, like there might have been some of manipulation or brainwashing or something like that. However, it cannot be one unilateral answer that he was only manipulated and blah blah blah. It doesn't work like that. She has to know what they were after. She has if she was actually persuaded that let's go by her boyfriend that became her husband, she had to also have some kind of feelings about Britain or Western or European society that it's an enemy, that she hates it, well, whatever the reasons were. So we need to make I think make at least, I'm not sure if about her, because it has to be individual cases, but we have to make an example that people will stop abusing and exploiting our compassion and our core values of everyone is, regardless of where you come from, regardless of your creed, you are welcome as long as you abide with the law of the land.
Okay, no, interesting. Very, very interesting. Yeah. So basically, tough love. We need to have we need to adopt a tough love personality.
Yeah. What's up,
nice.
guys? Sorry I'm late, but I totally agree with that 100%. I mean, you can't run off and join a terrorist group that has like our demise in plan and expect to come back and have nothing happen. Like, you shouldn't be allowed to come back.
Exactly.
So okay. So Aspects has just joined. So Aspect, your view is that if you commit such an act, a terrorist, for example, you shouldn't be allowed back into the country. That's your view.
100%. Like,
Yes.
without a doubt in my mind.
Okay, cool. Fair enough. Okay, I just want to quickly, Nova. So Nova had something that she wanted to share from a Swedish perspective. And then we have a question from Magic Thighs on Twitch, which I'm going to answer after. And then after that, I'm going to get Bethnian and Naharis to give their thoughts a bit more in depth. So Nova, the stage is yours.
Thank you. This is like a thing that has happened in Sweden. This is about, we have had several ISIS people coming back. I think it's 150 of them for some reason. Anyway, this is published. This is an interview, an exclusive interview with a former IS, do you say IS? Swedish citizen, Khaled. He was an ISIS warrior. Khaled, something in his last name. He says, I was a warrior in the Islamic State. This dude, in 2012, the Swedish security was aware of these groups that are wanted to travel and wanted to go to Syria to join the ISIS. This Khaled several years of combat experience and contacts with people who plan to carry out acts outside Syria have been worried the Swedish security service even before they went over. This interview taking place in a Kurdian prison now, that is the fall last year, that is in Syria, that he is in now. I want to tell a short story of what happened. When he was 20 years old, he went over with a group of friends to fight as an ISIS warrior. He was 20 years old. His cousins, his friends went over with him. These are educational youth. They have gone through doctor's education and Chalmers students and etc. etc. They have work etc. So this is not like stupid people. When they came down, it took like 1 year to 2013. They swore the oath to Islamic State, and they called it Al-Dawla down there. So he and his friends fought it in Aleppo, Sheikh Suleiman, blah, blah, blah. And then he got hurt in 2014. So during the time 2014, he went through 9 surgical operations in Syria and didn't get well in his shoulder. It was like something wrong.
Yeah.
So then the boss they had was one of the ISIS highest leader. The most hunted one is called al-Shishani. He died 2015 though. He paid him an surgical operation in Turkey, so he could travel from Syria over to Turkey, get a operation and go back again, and he didn't get well. Then he applied for the ISIS state to travel to Sweden to get aid for his hurt shoulder. That was like some
Oh wow.
yeah, and he is allowed to go back to Sweden, and here in Sweden we let him in.
And just to be clear, he's fighting against you.
Yes.
Wow,
Yes,
okay.
he's fighting down there as an
Wow.
ISIS soldier. They know, our security knows it, but at this year, 2014, we did not have the law that says it's forbidden to participate in terrorist actions and groups and stuff like that. Sweden
I mean,
didn't
do you
have
really
that.
even need a
but-
law for that?
Yeah. We need a law for that. The Swedish constitution says that anyone has right to blah, 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 should not be judged until blah, 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 you know, all that. Our security service stopped him at Arlanda and asked him questions. And because they have totally control of what they are doing. They know this, but they can't stop him because of the law. So it's not against the law to join ISIS at this point. He comes in to Sweden, and he got tax-financed health care to fix his severe nerve damage in his shoulder. He recovers, get well,
And then he
and
leaves.
then he
Wow.
marry his dead friend that died in the war down in Syria. He marries his sister, little sister, and brings her back to Syria. He brings her back, and he comes down. At first, he don't get let in because the ISIS security movement are afraid that he is going to be a snitch. He's a spy. He can't come back. He tries again to come over from Turkey to Syria, and that is okay. They allow him in. Then he starts fight again a while until the war starting to get over. This is in like, now he has kids and everything. So when this war ends in 2019 in Bangos, he is captured because he's fleeing over to the Turkish side. But Kurds catch him and put him in this prison in 2019. And today, in this interview, he says, I'm sorry. I want to apologize to my people home in Sweden. When he say my people home in Sweden, who does he mean? To my family and everything like this. I have done wrong. This is so wrong. And then he plea to Sweden that he wants to come home. And if Sweden are willing, he will take the help. And then he ends the interview with these words on print. He says like this. I have to read so you know.
A little bit like Cham, that's a really good example of people abusing law and our.
But this is a
profession.
story, but because he is in this. I'm saying this is complex. We have a religion that are crazy. He says, I'm not going to lie to you. We still want a caliphate. We
Wait, what is
still want to
that?
have an Islamic state, but maybe not one like this. So he ends the interview with that. This interview is made by a Kurdian media company. They are interviewing several people, also women that are in camps. These men are in prison, so to say, and then they offering the stories out. I don't know, is it true? But he's on film, and what he's saying, is it true? What is it?
It's an interesting one because I think that draws in with what I think Marky was saying earlier on. I think Glenn, in regards to having too lenient a system and people are just abusing it, and that's a really interesting story. It's quite scary actually. For the so aspect, so a caliphate is a political, but essentially an Islamic controlled state. Thanks for sharing that with us though, Nova. Some interesting disturbing revelations. So I want to quickly, Magic Thighs has joined us. He's a friend of mine and he gave us a question on Twitch. So he said on Twitch, Jono, can you draw any parallels between the treatment of Irish people and them being labelled as terrorists in England in the 70s and the 80s, whether they actually were or not, and the Muslim youth feeling alienated presently? To that, I would say 100%. I can 100% see that. So even though I was born in London, I come from an Irish family, and my grandparents, they did suffer this, and they used to be outside pubs and other buildings, no dogs, no blacks, no Irish. Irish people were very much, subjected to all manner of abuse, verbal and otherwise, during this period. And obviously you had people joining, that kind of coincided with the Irish Republican Army movement. There were several attacks in Britain. In Brighton, there was a hotel bombing. There were car bombings. So it's very easy. I think it all stems from that kind of that feeling of not being wanted, not feeling welcomed in a society. And I think that brings us onto a very interesting point: the importance of making people feel welcome. Making more efforts to get people involved, have a more collective, society. Otherwise, these kind of things are inevitable. And I do think, my own opinion, I do think that these kind of acts that we're seeing of terrorism, you can't 100% say this has come from nowhere. Where has this come from? This has come from nowhere. This is a random act of terror. No, it's not. You have to look deeper. You have to look at the core. Why has this happened? Obviously, it's because it's a corrupt individual. He had no right. She had no right to do it. It's a warped interpretation of a holy book, one could argue. But you need to look deeper, I think, and that's a very interesting point. So thank you for asking that question. I want to get Bethany Ann involved now. So Bethany Ann, after having heard all of this so far, what are your views? Do you have anything else that you'd like to share in regards to this whole debate, I suppose?
I just think, being part of the UK, we are always seen as pushovers, but on the other hand, I think we are and we always sort of try and see the good and give people a second chance. I feel like if I was a victim or one of the families of a victim who died, especially the Manchester bombings, I feel like she should come back. I feel like we need to know the ins and outs of everything she's done, because we need to know what kind of individual she is and what she's capable of doing. I feel like if she came back, she needs to face the British law. She should, meet with all these families and these victims and know just what she's caused. But we have a legal obligation and a right. We have to protect other people first. So that means I'm sure she's going to be allowed back. And maybe in a moral point of view, if we don't allow her back in a couple of years' time, she's going to ask again, or a couple of years' time, she's going to be dead. We don't want that on our conscience. We want to be seen as the country that, it makes us look weak, but we give them a second chance. But I feel like some people would look at it like she could be an advocate for all these other people. We could potentially stop this happening again, because she could maybe give a greater, deeper insight as to how she was manipulated, how she was coerced, in her words. Because I know that that image of her and her two friends when they were boarding the plane or going into the airport, they weren't aware of this, but that was all used by ISIS. They knew that was going to be taken, the CCTV, and that was going to be a way of luring others
I think you've cut out a bit, but yeah, that's interesting. So it was actually used by ISIS. Bethany and saying. Naharis, what do you think in regards to the idea that we're too soft? I'm not too sure if it's the case in Italy. Have you had similar incidents in Italy? Do you feel that if you have, has Italy acted better? Has it responded better? What is the stance?
I know we had a few cases of young people joining ISIS. I believe there's been a girl that actually made all her family join ISIS. But so today I was looking into an interview that this British girl have made. And correct me if I'm wrong, but from that interview, it appears that she was not regretting her decision. She actually said that her life in Syria was not bad at first. So I'm wondering, is this person not realized what's the heaviest of her action of what she joined it? I mean, it's terrorism, and I don't think she's actually regretting her decisions. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I mean, she might be brainwashed, but those things are actually really difficult to be changed. She should go under psychological treatment. And I don't know. Like, I mean, there's I don't know. There's so many stuff. Like, I don't see her going or even changing her mind any soon, because I think she actually believe in the
But what would you say though? That's okay. Fair enough. Marky, I want to bring that over to you, Marky. I want to say, what do you say to the idea that she's 15 years old. She's she's been reading the Quran and she's been misguided. I think it's fair to say there's I think is it 1.5 to 2 billion Muslims in the world, and this is only an incredibly small proportion of it. The same is also true of terrorists in the name of Christianity. It's always a very small portion, so it's not fair to label them all in the same way. I wanted to ask you, Marky, what do you say to the idea that Naharis believes, she probably won't change her ways. If we let her come back to Britain, she pretends that she pretends that she's apologetic. She will never do it again, and then she does it again. Do you think there's no possibility that she could change her ways? Do you think that, if anything, one could make an argument that her experience, having gone through that grooming process, having listened to these lies, she would be a really good person in the future to help other people who are easily susceptible like she was? She could help them go away from it using her own experience? Or is it there's no question whatsoever, she's made her bed, now she has to sleep in it?
Well, I think that's a little bit complicated. I have read and watched many cases where some has found reason or de-radicalized themselves. I, for example, like watching Majid Nawaz podcasts and his interviews and his story. There are many like him, but what I know about this particular young woman is she wasn't just there as a broodmare. The interview doesn't show that she was repentant or anything like that. It shows that more like she, just because she lost everything, her husband, the organization is mostly destroyed, everything, she has nothing left, so she wants to come back. That's the only. But the thing is, she broke so many international laws and even human rights laws. I mean, she was running around with a assault rifle and enforcing other women and other people. You don't get that job just because you want it. You have to be applicated for that. You have to be right. I mean, yes, she needs a lot of probably psychological evaluation, but I mean, in just this case, it seems not worth it, and since she broke so many international laws, and I mean, just to fund those kind of organization, you are doing human trafficking, you are doing drug trafficking, everything like that. I think Interpol or UN or so on should at least make like a first kind of some kind of detection or something like that to check out if she's actually worth trialing in UK. So it's
But what?
it's a really
I
hard
agree with
question.
Mark there. I actually agree with you. But if we look aside for the moral dilemma that this is, if she's been used as a tool in their agenda, or if she is really through, like, I think her story, sometimes I'm like this. She had children. She had 3 children, or what I know. Where are they? They are dead.
All three are dead, yeah.
That's what I
How?
said. She lost
How?
everything.
Yeah. But how? Are
Doesn't
we
mean
sure?
she regrets anything. She just lost everything. She wants
She
it back.
she doesn't care. She doesn't care she lost her kids. She doesn't care.
Yeah, I mean,
But
I
what
agree
I'm
with you guys.
saying
Not
Go
is
Nova,
that
continue. Then we'll bring it on to Ashley. So Nova,
the source criticism and everything, sometimes I feel this is like a created story of her wanting to go over with her friends to save another friend, and then they blah blah, etc etc. It's fat, it feels for me, but this is just one way in. I don't know anything more, but for me it feels like a bit fabricated, and like, who killed, what happened to the children? Are they all sick? Why? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And she had a boy or 2 boys. Where are they? Are they really dead? I don't know.
she doesn't seem to show remorse, and from what I've seen in video footage, it doesn't come across as someone that is desperate to make
No.
amends, that is desperately apologetic, and
True.
wants to come back. Aspects. I know you wanted to say so. I think you were speaking. Then we're going to bring it to Kasich.
No, yeah, like 100%. You can't go off and join a group like this because one, like Maggie was saying, you need some kind of intent. They're going to run you through the motions, see what you're good for. If you make it in, you make it in. You know what's about to go down. And yeah, that's just what I was saying. You know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You know what's going to happen. So playing oblivious to it is disingenuous, I suppose. Kasich, what did you want to say? Just bring it on to Pat for a second.
Because I know that I know that Glenn brought in the issue regarding the age of the girl as well in question. So that's generally like the go-to excuse right now. She was young, she was dumb, feeble-minded, she didn't know what she was doing. But then how much of that does a disservice to every other youngster? As Glenn rightly said, and I think pretty much everyone here, of course, younger people are much more susceptible. The brain isn't completely formed until late teens or early 20s. But at the same time, it makes is kind of like a generalized slant and attack
Can
at
you
every
even
other
use that as
person.
an excuse?
Honestly,
Honestly,
that's what I'm saying. It does a disservice to other young people who know who can differentiate between what is right, what is wrong, and who not to avoid, basically. The other thing I wanted to say as well is, like Marky said, she had the opportunity to come back to the UK. She had, through articles that were reported on her actions from her herself, with her and her husband. She had ample opportunities to return, or to at least apply. She didn't want it. She only started to become a voice as soon as the IS caliphate pretty much fell to shit.
Crumbled, yeah.
Yeah. So it's basically when you're left with nowhere else to go and you're basically stuck in a shit show, then suddenly,
Yeah.
I'm, pick me up, help me. I've
Yeah.
changed the error of my ways.
That make her
Yeah.
appeal less genuine then, in your opinions, I
Yeah.
suppose. Yeah.
And then it's also kind of like an appeal of utility. So I guess you could invoke some sort of utilitarian aspect as well. Which again, Glenn rightly said, what is bringing her in? Who's that going to benefit in the long run? Because that's all great. If you want to bring her in under law and legislation and judiciary process, brilliant. But then I would turn around and say, if anything were to happen, if any attacks go on, whatever, then we should hold the people that so vehemently pushed for her to come in to be held accountable.
Yeah.
So I'm sick of it being the public that are accountable, generally through death, through assault, through violation. And another great case was, I don't know if it was Nova said something or Naharis, I can't remember, sorry. There was a case of another such person who's put into jail. He was believed to be redeemed. He came out. He reverted back to radicalism, killed someone on the London Bridge, and you're left thinking,
Yeah.
well, how is this beneficial? Do we really want to do this? That's not to say, again, you may make the humanitarian plea and argument that maybe she can change. At what point do we just say, fend for yourself? Can people change? Is there a benefit for
Yeah.
letting her in? So, for example, could she potentially expose the so-called grooming gangs or the extremism and people in her situation or who would have been in her situation or are thinking about it? She can instruct them and tell them. But that argument's pretty much dashed when you realize that, again, she had every opportunity to get back. She only wanted to start coming back once the caliphate failed. So you need to question that.
What if someone were to make the case so that she's a woman, a young woman living in a male, I think it's fair to say that ISIS is a rather patriarchal society, right? And what if she wanted to come back, but she couldn't come back?
Well, she was a lovely young woman who had the brilliant freedoms and liberty to actually choose to leave this country. She chose to leave. She knew what she was getting into. You suffer the fate, basically.
Yeah.
What if she didn't know? What about the argument that she didn't know, though? Do we all know what we're doing at 15, what we're getting into when we try something for the first time? Do we really know until we try?
I mean, do you really need to know to that extent? I mean, it's a terrorist group who's been around for how long? How long has this group been, just fucking
Quite a long
shit up?
time. Quite a long time,
Yeah,
I think.
mean, everyone's aware of it.
Everybody
If you're
knows.
15, they just going around gunning people down, blowing people the fuck up.
But
That's all you need to
Everyone
know.
does stupid things at 15 and even later and before, but to have no clue what those kinds of organizations do is just false.
And there's
Yeah.
a big
It's
yeah.
not that
Yeah.
stupid.
Mhm.
That's just, and I just want to ask you, all of you, what do you think? Every time I hear something like this and try to check the interview or even discussion, it feels that there's a lot of more leeway given because of her age and because she is a woman. It's given that, oh, she's a poor child being just manipulated. Is that the reason? What if she was a 15-year-old guy? Would anything change in that?
Well,
I mean, from
Jihadi
your
Jack.
perspective or perspective of the public or public of UK viewing, it just sounds like they're giving more excuses for her to give her compassion because of her age and because she's a woman. I mean, she wasn't the broodmare there. I mean, she wasn't
think, though,
kidnapped there or something like that. It's just so a lot of fallacy in this.
Nova, come in.
Yeah, I think though you are right. The question is good, Marky. Was she not aware of that? But knowing the Islam religion does not put their women like on the highest pedestal. We all know that. She might be like a bit manipulated and maybe a bit afraid when she's down there, as like Magic says in the chat in the Devil's Advocate. How do we know that she doesn't fight for her life and do anything to just come from there? We are not sure about that. And as I say, we should also, our normality, Christian, we are Christian, I think all of us here, not
Well-
like
This is
No.
Actually, yeah, but we have that
we
race.
live in a
We have the race. Yeah, we live in
we
it.
live in a Christian country,
Yeah,
kind of.
exactly. And we have to understand that people that are born in an Islamic religion and a country that has this, that is their normality. They
Mhm.
see us as we are weak. We have no law in front of God. We have no such that and that and that. We have to understand we are going to meet on the same level. It's going to be a crash, of course. So we think this is totally crazy when they are insane and they think that we are weak.
I
That
think
doesn't,
it's
yeah.
sorry to interrupt. I think it's important though that we make a distinction that we are talking. I think you are referring to extremists, or are you talking about?
Exactly.
I don't think it's fair to say the whole religion as a whole. I don't think you were saying that. But just to make
No,
it
no,
clear,
no,
I
no.
think
In this case, I mean, in this case, when it comes to extremists, it's going to be another step further away from us. So it's been like, see, and
I
for
see what you
women,
mean.
as Marky say, I'm not sure about this woman thing about her.
Okay. All right, guys. I wanted to. We've had like a good discussion so far. There's two really important things actually that I wanted to kind of finish on essentially. But the conversation can go as long as you guys want it to. So the first one is basically Magic had a good question that I want to pose to you guys in regards to the idea of revoking citizenship. So as I said in the beginning, she had or has dual citizenship. So she was born in Britain to Bangladeshi parents. However, she has no ties or attachments or any kind of, she has never been there. She doesn't know anything about it. So essentially, she is without a culture right now. She is without a citizenship. She's been revoked of it.
Yeah.
So is that in regards to the legality of that? If we were to leave her out there, she's not allowed to come here to fight for her citizenship. She is essentially going to be stateless, right? She's going to be without a home.
Yeah.
So
No.
is that actually legal? Is that something legal? Is that something we should take into consideration when discussing this kind of thing? That's open to anyone. I'd like maybe Bethany-Ann or Naharis or Aspects to try and get in first, because I think I need to give them a bit more discussion time.
As far as it comes, like taking away someone's citizenship, I mean, I for one think citizenship in the first place is something whack. I mean, we all share the same planet. Let's just embody that and just go wherever the fuck we want. But when it comes to someone joining a terrorist group, I say take away their citizenship for sure. I mean, that's basically a declaration like, hey, we're about to wipe out the human race. Because isn't that like ISIS's goal or something, to kill just like everybody?
But
Yeah.
would
So
you
why
not
should they?
say it's wrong to remove her citizenship? She was a child. She was 15 years old.
I mean,
Like,
if I was,
it's basically to remove her identity for the rest of her life. Is that
well,
not
I mean,
something?
consequences, it's cause and effect. You can't do something this drastic and expect nothing to happen. You can't just be like, I'm gonna go back home now and expect yourself to be able to do that. For one, have the opportunity for everything to go back to normal, and it just makes no sense. I can't fathom how people could try to just like do that and think it's cool.
But what if she what if she didn't do anything? What if she just went over there and didn't fight? There is no evidence that she actually.
But there
took part.
is no what
Did
if,
she-
because there's already so much material what she did already there. You can't
But
say
she-
what if.
But there's
Then
no
you should.
evidence.
Then you need to bring more a
There's
different
no
case,
evidence
or
that she
say
took part in
generally.
any murder.
I mean, did she join this group or did she not?
She did.
That's all you need.
Yep. Exactly.
You know what's going down. That's your
Guilty.
intent. Your intent is
Do
to
you
join
agree
that
with-
or as anybody else in that group is. It doesn't
Fair
matter if you
enough.
pull the trigger yet. You're gonna have
Let's-
blood on your hands, but you're going to.
Could we state it like this? If a similar case where a young woman or a man that has ties or done something in ISIL or Al Qaeda or whatever, do they have? Should they be treated by our laws? I say yes, because I think case by case they some might have really a lot of value, not just like value to society, but they can change themselves or realize something. But when we just talk about this particular woman, I think the answer is no. So it's a bit different. Are you talking about what if or a different case? Because it's just different thing.
Bethany, and what do you think? Do you think that it's fair to make someone stateless? It's fair to take away their citizenship, bearing in mind that she was young. All the arguments we've heard, her arguments that she was young, she was groomed. Some people say she didn't know what she was getting into. 15-year-olds are stupid, as Magic said. Bearing all that in mind, in light of what she's perceived to have done or been a part of, is it fair to take away her citizenship, her only home?
What's her other citizenship? That's
So
Bangladesh.
she's Bangladeshi, yeah. She's also Bangladeshi.
Okay, I feel like this is the dilemma we're in. We don't want her back because what she's done is so extreme, but we also feel like we have this right. It's like a moral thing with human beings. Like, she's still a human being, and just like any other murderer or rapist or whatever, we have to give them human rights. Like, even in prison, that we treat them. You know what I mean? They can do commit the most extreme crimes, but we still treat them as a human being. So we have that moral obligation to help her, even though we don't want to. In an ideal situation, I would say send her to her other. Where is it? Bangladesh. Whatever. Send her there.
Bangladesh unwanted. Like I said, she has no ties with them. They don't know her. She's never been there.
She'll get hanged. She'll get hanged if she goes there.
We're so soft in the UK, but what I'm thinking is we all know where this is going to go. She's going to come back, whether we like it or not, because the UK are so soft like that. The whole thing of her with the baby, that could have just been a way of playing on our heartstrings. We know how soft the UK is, so it might not have even been her baby. But the thing is, she's going to come back. She's going to get her citizenship. We know that, but she needs to be under constant surveillance all the time, and being watched. And everyone has a right to know who she is and her whereabouts. She can't come in and be given a new identity and all that. She needs to come in and face the reality of it, that nobody really wants her back apart from her family. So I have to also think of it like this. My younger sister is 15. She turned 15 only a few days ago. She doesn't know her mind. If that was her and she was manipulated or groomed by these older men, of course I would fight for her to come back. So I have to try and look at it from a different perspective too. You have to kind of have some empathy, but you need to know what she's capable of doing. If she
cut out, Bethany. You've cut out. We're gonna let Bethany come back in a second or two, but really good point. Actually, I wanted to say on that, you said that she's. If it were your sister, you'd fight for her to come back. In regards to her being stateless, I think everyone here has made a point that she's made her bed, she should sleep in it. She's done it. However, what about letting her come back to Britain to apply, to fight for her citizenship? Because that's actually a legal thing that she can do, which is, I think, she's been permitted to do. Is it okay, even if she doesn't get her citizenship, if she comes here to apply for it, is that something that you think is okay? Because it's technically legal. Like, even if we like it or not, she's allowed to do it, Bethany, if you're still there.
Can you hear me?
You there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Once she's in. She's in. She's not going to go back. We're not going to send her back there. We all know that. It's under the law. I feel like there's always this thing. I can get angry about some people who are in prison and they're murderers, they're rapists. They're all part of this an organised crime. I mean, look at the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing. But she still has a right as a human being. That's the thing. We're human beings. We can commit some of the most horrible crimes, but people have a right to still protect her. I think she's going to come over, but we need to sort of hear it from her perspective. We need to
You'd support her coming here and telling us what she's done, giving us.
Not necessarily. I wouldn't necessarily support her coming here, but I know that's what's going to happen. the only thing I can say is, in a really hopeful view of us being so soft, is that she's going to be like an advocate for other girls, not to go down the same route and to prevent this happening again. So yeah, that's the only light I can see in it. And her family are going to have her back. So hopefully her family and her whole community, her whole Muslim community, hopefully they are going to let her know what she's done, because we have such a negative image of the Muslim culture anyway. She's just made it worse. So let her come back and face it, instead of hiding.
Magic.
And then we're going to hear about it in a few years. So.
Just quickly, Magic. Magic's been here and he's given us some good questions. Magic, I don't think I asked for your own opinion, so I know you're typing. So while I give a question to Naharis, if you want to type up your own response to whether or not you feel she should be allowed back or what you think should be done, and then I can read that out and share that. That would be awesome. Naharis, I just wanted to ask you one thing. I think that we haven't talked about it, but it's a big part of the whole thing. I do believe she still has a baby, does she not?
No, they all died.
They all died.
Yeah, they're all dead.
3 of them.
All 3 of them are dead. All 3.
Didn't she had a baby like recently?
No, it was last year she had it,
Yeah.
I think.
Did
and
it
it
die?
died.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
That's kind of disturbing, because that would almost make one feel that she's neglectful. I don't know, or maybe it's just her surroundings. I don't know. That's kind of.
I mean, I thought she had a baby. I was about actually to say that if she come back in England with the baby, she's never gonna leave. Like with the baby. I mean, you can't really reject her. But
she only used.
Would you accept the baby though, Glenn? For example, would you let the baby come back and not her?
Well, funnily enough, actually,
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, she did. She was offered to let the baby go, but honestly, honestly, I think the baby's just a golden ticket to get her back. Honestly, I really believe that she doesn't care about that child.
Fair enough.
As Sweden, I can.
Are we here? Yeah, lovely Discord crash. Typical. Pity. It was going so well as well. We'll probably give it like a couple of minutes. Hopefully it will fix itself. If not, we may just call it. But hopefully we can carry on.